Hello, everyone, and welcome. Here are some of the stories we have for you right now. With glowing hearts, Canada celebrates an epic hockey win that extends far beyond the ice.
Sends it around. Marner waiting. Scores!
This was a win for 40+ million people.
What the critical victory means to Canadians from coast to coast.
We're just getting the message out that it's stronger together.
The diplomatic face-off as provincial premiers meet with state governors in D.C.
I can tell you that tariffs are clearly a tool that is very attractive to the president.
A stark warning from Canada's ambassador about a potentially unavoidable threat.
We could face a complete shutdown of the industry.
And growing alarm as a major automaker hits the brakes at a Canadian plant.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Canadians from coast to coast are celebrating an epic win over the United States at the Four Nations final. An incredible hockey game with the best of the best playing against each other. But you don't have to be a hockey fan to be feeling patriotic today. That triumph in Boston was about so much more than an age-old hockey rivalry. The match symbolic of the Canada-U.S. ties on thin ice. CTV's Jeremy Sharon joins us with more on the plays and just how politically charged this event was.
Heather, this wasn't just a game. The fans knew it, and so did the players. This was a much-needed win for Canada on and off the ice.
Sends it around. Marner waiting. Connor McDavid scores! Connor McDavid for Canada!
A golden goal from Canada's Connor McDavid with the weight of a nation on his shoulders.
That means the world. Obviously, you can see how happy our group is. It means a lot to us, too.
A win for Canada against the U.S. that comes in the face of political and economic attacks from President Donald Trump, who called the American team ahead of the game, offering his support.
This one was different. This wasn't a win for themselves. This was a win for 40+ million people. But Canada needed a win. And the players bared that on their shoulders.
A win celebrated by fans across the country.
They were always going to get it done. I had no doubt in my mind.
Including Canada's Prime Minister, who took to social media after the game to share a pointed message. You can't take our country, and you can't take our game.
The way the government's going right now, what's going on? Absolutely, we needed to win that.
It was clearly more than just a game, and that was obvious before it even started.
True patriot love that only us command.
With a small but deliberate change to the Canadian anthem by Winnipeg's Chantal Kreviatsik, she says meant to send a message to Trump about his threat to make Canada the 51st state. For a tournament that some first thought wouldn't hold much weight, it's one that will now be long remembered. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News.
The diplomatic push continued south of the border today in the hopes of averting Donald Trump's threatened tariffs. Ontario Premier Doug Ford and Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston met with U.S. governors in Washington, D.C. CTV's Judy Trin is at the National Governors Association winter meeting. What are we hearing from the premiers today, Judy?
Well, Heather, this meeting was much smaller than last week's affair, which involved all 13 leaders of the provinces and the territories. But the mission remained the same. Talk up Canada. Talk up the fact that tariffs will hurt both Americans and Canadians, and get, hopefully, some answers from state governors as to what Trump could be thinking of doing next. That's not too easy. Take a listen.
The good thing is they know we've been down here. And they know our ministers have been down here, the premiers have been down here. We're down here again, so it's on the radar, and that's very important. But again, I'm being honest, like no one knows what he wants, including elected officials down here.
Okay, so that's what the premiers are saying. Judy, what are you hearing from the governors that you've been speaking with so far?
Well, a group of about 45 governors met with President Donald Trump for about 4 hours. The president riffed on a lot of topics, including Ukraine, Russia, autism, but also trade. And what he basically said was that he did not make a decision yet. And what the governors said was that some of them were divided. Some support Trump's economic plan, which involves tariffs. Others aren't so sure.
I think tariffs, when you're a free market commodity state like North Dakota, we like good trade agreements, but we also want to reset it and make sure the United States is being treated fairly. We're working through all of it, and the White House wants to reset the deck and wants to bring manufacturing back home, and I think that's a fantastic idea.
It's very important to me, as the governor of Kentucky, first to push back against tariffs that'll harm both of our countries, but specifically my people, but also to message to the Canadian people that this is not who we are. This might be the approach of one president, but we're much bigger than a president in this country.
Some of the governors have told President Trump's administration about their concerns directly, and a message that the premiers wanted to pass along was that to make sure the administration knows that Canada is hitting its markers when it comes to fentanyl and illegal migration, that we've appointed a fentanyl czar, that we've actually decided to 7 groups we've listed that are drug cartels, we've listed as terror groups. So those are some of the actions we've taken, and to make sure it gets into President Trump's ear. Heather.
CTV's Judy Trin for us in Washington this evening. Try as we might, Donald Trump's tariffs may be unavoidable, at least in some form. And that's certainly been the message coming from U.S. officials pretty consistently since the president's inauguration. CTV's chief political correspondent and host of Power Play, Vashi Kapelos, caught up with Canada's ambassador to the U.S. Vashi, what's Kirsten Hillman saying now?
Hi, Heather. Yeah, it may feel like that countdown to the possible application of tariffs has faded a bit into the background given everything else that is going on, but it still is very much real, and efforts continue to be underway to try and secure some kind of more permanent exemption for Canadian imports. I had a chance to sit down with Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Kirsten Hillman, who is kind of leading those Team Canada efforts. She certainly has met with a number of people on the inside of Donald Trump's administration to try and ascertain whether we were getting any signals, any explicit assurances from people in and around Donald Trump that those tariffs are not coming. Here's what she said.
No, we haven't received any explicit assurances. What happens is we provide the information. We have received positive recognition of not only the efforts that we've made, but the results that are flowing from those efforts. But all of the people that are responsible for taking this information in and then briefing the president on it are not going to speak for the president.
Now, certainly, if the tariffs this round at least are tied to the border, the government is making a lot of effort at strengthening the border, cracking down on cartels, a whole host of things that they can say, here, look, Donald Trump, this is what we've done. But if, in fact, it's about more than the border, which Donald Trump has certainly signaled it is, and it's about a wider trading relationship that he views, albeit without the facts to back it up, is imbalanced towards Canada, then we're possibly in for a much longer, protracted fight. Heather?
Vashi, thank you for this. And you can catch Vashi's full interview with Ambassador Hillman this Sunday on Question Period. Automaker Stellantis announced it's pausing work on the retooling of a plant near Toronto, gearing up to build the next generation Jeep Compass SUV. The company says it needs to reassess its North American strategy, citing, quote, a dynamic environment. The plant had employed about 3,000 people. Here's CTV's John Benavalli Rao.
Production at this auto assembly plant in Brampton has been frozen for more than a year, with a major billion-dollar retooling taking place aimed at building the next-generation electric and gas Jeep Compass vehicles. And the news, the brakes are being put on that retooling as the union representing workers feeling anxious.
All of this just adds to the layer of concern and uncertainty that our members and that workers everywhere are facing right now.
Analysts say U.S. President Donald Trump's threatened tariffs on the auto sector have the potential to cripple production on both sides of the border. And the union is worried plans to build Jeeps at this plant could be further delayed, affecting thousands of workers. For its part, Stellantis says work is only being paused temporarily to, quote, reassess its product strategy, citing a dynamic environment, and adding this does not change our previously announced investment plans for Brampton.
It's not great news because we need certainty, but we do know that every single car maker is rethinking the product mix now that we're in this new world.
Sales of electric vehicles had been slowing, and after Donald Trump scrapped incentives to buy EVs, automakers have been reconsidering their plans for electrification.
What it looks like is that Stellantis is kind of calling a bit of an audible, and it's going to bring the gas version of that Jeep to that plant before the electric version.
As for production at that Brampton plant, it was supposed to resume later this year, but the union fears that may no longer be a possibility. Heather.
All right, John, thanks. A new setback for the fragile ceasefire in the Middle East after Hamas returned the wrong body back to Israel.
The body that Hamas falsely claimed was Shiri was not hers and not of any other hostage. Instead, Hamas sent over the body of an anonymous woman.
The body of Shiri Bibas was supposed to be handed over along with the remains of her 2 young children. But Israel says forensic testing shows the body returned yesterday was a woman from Gaza. Hamas says it's investigating what happened and has named 6 living hostages to be released on Saturday.
I've had very good talks with Putin, and I've had not such good talks with Ukraine. They don't have any cards, but they play it tough.
Donald Trump appeared to criticize Ukraine's leadership again today, saying the U.S. will not let the war continue. While in Kyiv, Ukraine's Air Force says it shot down 87 Russian drones in an overnight attack. And a suspected gas grill explosion at a resort in Hawaii has injured at least 7 people, with 3 in critical condition. The massive blast scattered debris across a popular beach in West Maui. In New York today, accused killer Luigi Mangione appeared in court for the first time since his arraignment. The 26-year-old is accused of fatally gunning down a U.S. health insurance executive in December. At the hearing, Mangione's lawyer told the judge he was illegally searched during his arrest and that she will seek to exclude that evidence from trial. Here at home, the next federal election is fast approaching, and with more ridings up for grabs than ever before, the parties have to name candidates in more constituencies than they ever have. And as CTV's Rachel Aiello learned, 2 of the 3 major parties still have a lot of work to do.
This is going to be an absolutely crucial election for our country.
As the race to pick the next Liberal leader gets closer to the finish line, speculation is ramping up that the winner could call a snap election soon after to seize on the momentum the party's seeing in the polls. With 343 seats up for grabs in the next campaign, CTV News contacted the federal parties to see how many ridings have candidates selected. As of this week, the Conservatives are leading with 234. The Liberals have 147, and the NDP are close behind with 143. While recent polling shows Conservative support slipping, Pierre Poilievre, having the political wind in his sails for the last few years, has helped him recruit.
I think that's what you're seeing, is a lot of people are stepping up who kind of want to be a part of that change, and they see obviously a lot of opportunity to have a seat at the table and kind of drive that.
Since Justin Trudeau triggered a leadership race, the Liberals say they've seen an uptick in interest in running for the party. But with dozens of cabinet ministers and MPs not re-offering, they've lost some senior campaigners.
Anytime you lose an MP, there's usually an incumbency benefit that comes with that. So, the fact that there's a lot of Liberal MPs who aren't running again, that will make it more challenging in those ridings.
Jagmeet Singh's team recently urged candidates in a memo to get ready for a snap vote within weeks. Despite needing to name more candidates than they currently have, the NDP's national director said every campaign there's concerns the party won't run a full slate, and in the end, they always do.
We have approved packages for many, many more ridings that we will proceed with very quickly once we know exactly when the election is going to be.
As for the Greens, the party is still vetting its nominees. But Leader Elizabeth May said this week she's not nervous about running candidates in all ridings.
We will have a full slate by the writ drop.
It's not just needing to name candidates, but ensuring you have enough time to properly vet them. And so insiders told me all parties likely have a spreadsheet of prospective nominees that they could tap in a pinch, on top of rosters of star candidates who may be waiting until closer to the election being called to confirm their bids. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Coming up, the thrill of trumping Team USA.
They played with that pressure and they really put the flag first.
A play-by-play of the surge in patriotism going well beyond overtime. Canada's win over Team USA in an overtime thriller at hockey's first ever Four Nations Face-Off Championship still has people talking today. The game played against the backdrop of heightened political tensions between the countries. For more, we turn to TSN's James Duthie. James, it's a long-standing on-ice rivalry, but this game simply felt different. It really brought the country together.
It really did. I think it was this perfect timing of not seeing best-on-best hockey for a long time because NHL players haven't been going to the Olympics and there haven't been World Cups. So I think we were starving for that as fans. You have this rivalry between Canada and the US, eternal rivals, the best rivalry in hockey. And then when you blend that together with the environment we are in right now, I think it turned out to mean a lot more than we thought it would. When this thing was first announced, we weren't sure what it was going to be. It was just a replacement for the All-Star game, this funky little four-team tournament. It wasn't the Olympics. And yet by the end, it felt like the Olympics because, I think we're this polite, quiet nation, but when we get our backs up against the wall, we get feisty and we get proud and we turn to hockey for that. And so all of these emotions were sort of encapsulated in this one hockey game.
And James, talk to us about that tournament created by the NHL. There was some uncertainty of how it was going to go, but we know it certainly seemed to go over well with fans. That excitement some hockey fans have never really experienced in their lifetime.
There were a lot of skeptics because it was just a replacement for All-Star and it was happening in the middle of the season. And would players really try? Because they're about to go on a run towards the playoffs and chasing the Stanley Cup. But I think from the very first shift, the players showed that this really mattered to them because for guys like Nathan MacKinnon and Connor McDavid, they've never had a chance to play best on best at a senior level. So that was the buy-in that they got. And when you factor that with all the other things going on, I mean, the players kept saying the politics don't matter to us. It's just a hockey game. But I think they have friends texting them and family texting them. They know what's going on in the world. So they felt what Canadians were feeling. And, the texts, I got so many texts last night, and most of them said the same three words: we needed this as a nation. And I think that's kind of the way we collectively felt.
And it's still being felt today. TSN's James Duthie joining us this evening. Thank you. A magnitude 4.8 earthquake was felt in British Columbia this afternoon. It was detected northeast of South Pender Harbor, about 3 hours from Vancouver, where at least one man told CTV News that he felt his house shake. Stay with CTV News for the latest updates. After the break, still digging out. Mounting frustration over the marathon cleanup after back-to-back storms. A 13-year-old girl from Montreal has died days after it's believed she was buried in a collapsed snow tunnel. The girl was rushed to hospital after she was found unconscious outside her home on Tuesday and has now died from her injuries. It happened after the area received more than 70 centimeters of snow in just 4 days. This tragedy led the city to issue a warning about playing in snow forts and tunnels. Like large parts of the country this month, Toronto was also hit by record amounts of snow, and people in the city are still having a hard time getting around. CTV's Beth McDonnell now on the piles of snow and mounting frustration.
In Toronto's East End, there are vehicles still covered in snow.
Piles of snow higher than cars and still so much snow, it's not easy for everyone to get around.
I think it's terrible. I think that they could be doing a much better job. I bet you there's a ton of senior citizens or people with disabilities that are stuck in their apartments and homes on these side streets are ridiculous.
It's been more than a week since the city's first big storm this month and 5 days since the second. And while the city is making progress clearing snow, some feel there is room for improvement.
You know, it should take just two, maximum 3 days to clear everything.
I mean, pleased to see that some of the bike lanes have been cleared, but there's just so much snow out there.
Snow still spills on streets, causing vehicles to park over the designated line, forcing people to walk around cars or climb over the banks.
I'm a business owner as well. It impacts all the local small businesses because there's going to be less foot traffic, and also the people can't even park on the side of the roads.
Some sidewalks are pretty clear before all of a sudden you hit a mound of snow. And so the balancing act to get by and the shoveling continues.
Yeah, it's bad. Getting to school, horrible. You just look over there, get to crawl over it, it's insane.
Crews with blowers and bobcats are working to remove snow, dispatched to strategic locations and loading it onto dump trucks. From there, the snow is hauled away and discarded in a yard.
Well, they're working at it. They're working hard. I don't want to give a grade yet. You know, you get a report card at the end of the term, no?
City officials say crews are out 24/7, but it could take 3 weeks to finish the job. Beth McDonnell, CTV News, Toronto.
After the break, following the puck and the pride. How a championship win is spreading true Patriot love far and wide. Before we go, let's take a moment to soak up last night's historic hockey victory and hear from Canadians celebrating from coast to coast, starting with a bar in Toronto when Connor McDavid scored in overtime. Thank you for joining us. I'll be back with your late national news.
It was stressful, but if you're a Canadian boy, you're always going to believe in this team. They were always going to get it done. I had no doubt in my mind.
I think it brings Canada together, especially at a time we need it.
Oh my God, did I jump out of my seat like crazy? Me and my son were just cheering like mad in the garage.
Good to see that they played with that pressure and they really put the flag first, kind of a deal. So, yeah, it was a really good game. I enjoyed it, yeah.
I was so happy for Canada. I was proud of the boys. I thought they won with humility. I thought they were classy. I enjoyed everything about the game. It was great.
It was pretty exciting. It was nice to see Marner get, a primary assist on the final goal. No, it was pretty cool to see.
I was so happy to see that right at the end. Oh, I was killing myself. It was great.
Feels really proud to see the victory, especially came in overtime.